Get out, paying bills doesn't make you family, my dad snapped on Thanksgiving. Mom leaned in and whispered, "You're just jealous of your brother." I smiled and said, "Then let him cover the $9,600. That night, I shut everything down. By morning, cops, tears, chaos. Imagine pouring your entire life, your hard-earned money, and your very soul into keeping your parents afloat, only to be told you're selfish, ungrateful, and a disappointment. That was my reality for years, until one disastrous Thanksgiving dinner where I finally reached my breaking point and unleashed a truth bomb that shattered my family forever. My name is Rachel, and at 28, I'm a financial analyst at one of Boston's top firms. I should feel accomplished. But every single month, as I clicked to transfer $1,600 for my parents' mortgage, I felt like that desperate little girl again, still begging for a scrap of approval. I funded their entire lifestyle, kept a roof over their heads, yet I was always the family disappointment. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Kevin, just floated through life, basking in unearned praise. This Thanksgiving, well, it changed absolutely everything. Growing up in the Morgan household, there was one immutable law. My father, Harold, had expectations. And I, Rachel, almost never met them. From elementary school spelling bees to high school debate competitions, nothing I achieved was ever quite good enough. Second place is just the first loser, he'd say, his eyes scanning my trophies with that thinly veiled look of disappointment. My mother, Linda, was different, but honestly, not better. Dad was overtly critical, Mom was passively dismissive. "That's nice, dear," she'd murmur, barely glancing up from whatever magazine featured Kevin's latest football triumph. Her indifference often cut deeper than Dad's criticism. Then there was Kevin. 3 years younger, he became the golden child the moment he threw his first perfect spiral at age 7. His mediocre grades? Oh, those were focusing on what really matters. My straight A's? Trying too hard to show off. When he made varsity as a freshman, my parents threw a huge backyard barbecue. When I got into Harvard with a partial scholarship, I got a nod and a "well, you always did like books." This painful pattern was the soundtrack to my childhood. I learned to find validation elsewhere, in teachers' praise, academic achievements, the quiet satisfaction of knowing I was building something for myself. I threw myself into my studies, determined to create a life where I wouldn't need their approval. College was my escape. I majored in economics, minored in computer science, and graduated with honors. Guess who wasn't there? Anyone from my family. Kevin had a football game. I told myself it didn't matter. I landed a job at Beacon Financial Partners, one of Boston's most prestigious firms, and built a life for myself in the city. For 5 years, I maintained polite, distant contact, holiday visits, occasional phone calls, nothing too deep. Then, 3 years ago, everything shattered. Dad called on a Tuesday evening, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. He'd been laid off after 20 years. At 58, with no degree in a shrinking industry, his prospects were grim. Mom had only ever worked part-time at the local library. Their savings, what little they had, were rapidly depleting. The mortgage was 3 months behind. They were about to lose the house I grew up in. I'd just received a substantial promotion. My new salary allowed for a comfortable life in Boston's expensive market, with enough left over to build my savings. Without hesitation, I packed up my apartment, moved back to my hometown, and rented a small place 15 minutes from my parents. I started paying their $1,600 mortgage directly. I covered utilities, groceries, car insurance, about $800 in additional monthly expenses. "Just until Dad finds something new," Mom had said, squeezing my hand, tears in her eyes. That was 3 years ago. Dad found part-time work at a hardware store, bringing in barely enough for their personal expenses. Mom picked up more hours, but the mortgage and utilities remained squarely on my shoulders. $9,600 a year, every year, for 3 years. That's $28,800 total. Did they appreciate it? Not in any way that truly mattered. Dad still criticized my investment choices. Mom still compared me unfavorably to Kevin, who had moved to Chicago, working in sales for a sporting goods company. He called on holidays, sent birthday cards, but contributed nothing. Yet, somehow, he remained the perfect son in their eyes. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving at my apartment. I'd just been promoted again, and my new place finally had a dining room big enough. I invited Mom and Dad, Kevin, and his new girlfriend, Brittany. I spent weeks planning the perfect menu, incorporating Dad's favorite bourbon-glazed ham, Mom's sweet potato casserole, even tracking down Kevin's favorite craft beer. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I dropped $347 at the grocery store, carefully selecting organic produce, a free-range turkey, premium ingredients. As I loaded the bags, I felt that familiar mix of hope and dread. Hope that this year would be different. Dread that it would be exactly the same. They'll see how much effort you're putting in, I told myself. But as I caught my reflection, eyes already tired from anticipatory stress, another voice whispered, "When have they ever?" Thanksgiving morning arrived with the smell of butter and spices already filling my apartment. I'd been up since 5 a.m., preparing the turkey, chopping vegetables, organizing my kitchen for maximum efficiency. The dining table was set with my best dishes, wedding gifts from a marriage that hadn't worked out, but that's another story. Crystal wine glasses gleamed under the soft light of my grandmother's antique chandelier, the only family heirloom I'd managed to claim. As I worked, memories of previous Thanksgivings paraded through my mind. Last year, Dad complained the turkey was dry, while Mom fretted I was still single. The year before, they talked about Kevin's promotion, barely acknowledging I'd just closed the biggest account of my career. And before that, Mom had invited my ex-boyfriend without telling me, hoping we'd reconcile. We hadn't spoken in months. My phone buzzed with a text from Amber, my best friend. Survival plan in place. Remember what we talked about? Boundaries. I smiled, grateful. Amber was my rock. I texted back, all good. Turkey in oven, alcohol stocked. Escape plan. Fake work emergency at 8 p.m. if necessary. Her reply came immediately. I'll call at 8 sharp. Use code word spreadsheet if extraction needed. Love you. At 11:30, the doorbell rang. Mom arrived first, carrying a store-bought pumpkin pie despite my assurance dessert was covered. The table looks nice, she said, surveying my carefully arranged settings. But wouldn't it be better with the blue plates? These white ones are so corporate. I bit back the reminder that she'd always used white plates. Thanks for the pie, Mom. You can put it in the kitchen. She frowned at the turkey. You're not using my recipe. I'm trying Ina Garten's method this year, I explained. It involves brining overnight. I hope your father won't mind experiments. You know how traditional he is. Traditional meaning he expected everything exactly as it had always been, except when he wanted something different. I took a deep breath. Can I get you some wine? Mom settled into the living room, flipping channels until she found the parade. I cooked, trying to ignore her occasional commentary about my kitchen organization and cooking techniques. At 12:15, Kevin arrived with Brittany. He carried nothing but his phone. Brittany, at least, brought yellow roses, handing them to me with a genuine smile. These are beautiful, I said, touched. Thank you, Brittany. Our pleasure, she said, glancing at Kevin, who was already hugging Mom. Your place is gorgeous. Can I help with anything? Before I could answer, Mom gushed, Kevin, look how handsome you are. That Chicago weather must agree with you. Kevin grinned, accepting Mom's adoration as his birthright. The Bears are having a good season, too. My sales numbers for team merchandise are through the roof. That's wonderful, honey, Mom beamed. I handed Brittany a glass of wine. Thanks for the offer to help. Everything's under control, but I appreciate it. Brittany took the wine, her eyes observing the dynamics with quiet intelligence. This is my first time meeting your parents. Kevin's told me so much about your family. I wondered exactly what he'd told her. From the sympathetic look she gave me, I suspected more truth than fiction. Dad arrived last at 12:45, 15 minutes before the scheduled meal. He carried a 6-pack of domestic beer, despite the craft beer I'd purchased. Place is hard to find, he grumbled by way of greeting. You should have better directions. I texted them to you yesterday, Dad, I said, accepting his awkward side hug. Well, Smells good in here anyway, he conceded, which, from him, was high praise. As I returned to the kitchen to baste the turkey, I overheard Dad in the living room. Rachel's going all fancy on us this year. Probably trying to show off with all that Boston money. Harold, Mom said in a half-hearted reprimand. What? It's true. All these fancy dishes and expensive wines. Who's she trying to impress? I gripped the counter, knuckles white. $347 in groceries, $1,600 in mortgage payments, $800 in utilities and other bills, all for them. And this was the thanks I got. When Kevin wandered into the kitchen in search of beer, I was still seething. Hey sis, he said, oblivious to my mood. Dad brought Budweiser. Got any in the fridge? There's craft beer in there. I got that IPA you mentioned liking. Kevin shrugged. Dad says those fancy beers are just for people who want to feel special. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Take whatever you want, Kevin. As he rummaged, I checked the turkey one last time. Perfect golden brown skin. Right on schedule. At least something was going according to plan. At precisely 1 p.m., I announced dinner was ready. Everyone took their assigned seats. The spread looked like something from a food magazine. Herb-roasted turkey, bourbon-glazed ham, 3 kinds of potatoes, green bean casserole, homemade cranberry sauce, fresh rolls still warm. Dad looked at the feast and frowned. Where's the stuffing? It's right here, I said, pointing to the ceramic dish. It's cornbread stuffing with sausage and apples. He poked at it suspiciously. Doesn't look like your mother's stuffing. And so it began. Let's say grace, Dad announced, reaching for Mom's hand and Kevin's. We formed our traditional circle, heads bowed. Lord, Dad began. We thank you for this food and for bringing our family together today. We're especially grateful for Kevin making the trip from Chicago to be with us. We thank you for his continued success and for Brittany joining our family circle. We ask your blessing on this meal and on our family bonds, which are more important than any material possessions or worldly success. Amen. My eyes remained closed a beat longer. Not in prayer, but in disbelief. Not a word of thanks for the meal I had prepared, the home I had provided for the gathering, or the financial support that kept their home from foreclosure. I caught Brittany's gaze across the table, a flash of recognition that told me she noticed, too. The turkey looks great, Rachel, Brittany offered as we began passing dishes. Yes, not bad, Mom agreed in the same tone she might use to praise a child's finger painting. Though I usually leave it in a bit longer. It's perfectly cooked, Brittany countered, slicing into her piece. Moist, but fully done. Did you brine it? Yes, overnight with herbs and citrus, I replied, warming to her genuine interest. Fancy, Dad muttered, helping himself to more ham than turkey. Kevin, already on his second beer, steered the conversation to safer territory. So, Dad, did you watch the Bears game last Sunday? For the next 20 minutes, they discussed football while Mom interjected occasional questions about Brittany's job as a pediatric nurse. I ate silently, wondering why I'd bothered with the organic heirloom vegetables and imported cheeses when no one at the table except Brittany seemed to notice or care. Rachel, how's work? Brittany asked during a lull, clearly trying to include me. Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. Oh, she's still at that financial place. Always working such long hours. She turned to Kevin. Nothing like your job where you get to meet all those interesting sports people. Actually, I said, setting down my fork. I was promoted to senior investment strategist last month. I'm now managing a portfolio worth over $300 million for our top clients. That sounds impressive, Brittany said. Dad snorted. Numbers on a computer screen. Not like real work. My work is very real, Dad, I said, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. Those numbers represent people's retirements, college funds for their kids, security for their families. And good money for you, I bet, he said, which is why I don't understand why you're always complaining about helping your family out a little. The room went silent. Even Kevin looked uncomfortable. When have I ever complained about helping out? I asked quietly. Your mother told me you mentioned the mortgage was due next week. As if we didn't know. I turned to Mom, who suddenly became very interested in rearranging the food on her plate. I only mentioned it because I needed to transfer the money from my investment account. It takes 2 business days, and with the holiday weekend, there you go again. Always bringing up money, Dad interrupted. We get it, Rachel. You're successful. You make good money. You help us out. Do you want a medal? Harold, Mom murmured, but there was no real objection. No, Linda. I'm tired of walking on eggshells. Rachel holds this money over our heads like she's some kind of savior. My hands began to shake. 3 years. $28,800. And not once had I used it to guilt them or demand their gratitude. I have never held anything over your heads, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I helped because you're my family and you needed it. And we appreciate it, Mom said quickly. Don't we, Harold? Dad stabbed a piece of ham. What I'd appreciate is a daughter who cares about more than her bank account. Family is about loyalty, not dollar signs. Loyalty. The word tasted bitter. I moved back here 3 years ago to help you. I've paid your mortgage, your utilities, your car insurance. Here we go again with the money talk. Dad's voice rose. This is exactly what I mean. You think because you write some checks, you're entitled to special treatment. Special treatment? I echoed in disbelief. When have I ever received special treatment in this family? Kevin shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should talk about something else. No, I said firmly. I want to know what Dad means by special treatment. Do you mean acknowledgement? Basic gratitude? Because I haven't seen much of either. You want gratitude? Dad's face flushed red. Fine. Thank you, Rachel, for doing what any decent daughter would do for her parents. There, happy now. Something snapped inside me. A decent daughter. What about a decent father? One who doesn't constantly criticize and diminish his child's achievements. One who shows an ounce of appreciation when that child sacrifices her own financial security to save his house? That's enough. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the plates jump. I won't be spoken to like this in, well, I would say my house, but I guess you'd remind me it's technically your house, wouldn't you? It's my apartment that I pay for, yes, I said quietly. Just like I pay for your house. Dad stood up so abruptly his chair tipped backward. Get out, he shouted. Paying bills doesn't make you family. Get out. The absurdity of being told to get out of my own home might have been funny if it weren't so painful. Brittany looked horrified. Kevin stared at his plate. Mom reached for Dad's arm. Harold, please. It's Thanksgiving. He shook her off. I won't sit here and be disrespected by my own daughter. Disrespected. I laughed, a hollow sound. That's rich coming from you. Mom leaned toward me, her voice a harsh whisper. You're just jealous of your brother. You always have been. He knows how to be part of this family without turning everything into a transaction. Her words hit me like a physical blow. After everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed, this was what she truly believed. I stood slowly, a strange calm settling over me. You're right, Mom. My voice was eerily steady. Kevin does know how to be part of this family. He calls on holidays, sends birthday cards, and contributes absolutely nothing to keeping you in your home. I turned to my brother. No offense, Kevin. He had the grace to look ashamed. I smiled, a calculated expression that felt foreign on my face. So, you know what? You're absolutely right. Let Kevin be the perfect child. Let him take over the mortgage payments and the utilities and everything else. That's $9,600 a year that I'll be keeping from now on. Dad's face paled slightly. Now, Rachel, there's no need to be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Dad. I'm being transactional. Remember? And this transaction is officially terminated. I walked to the door and held it open. Dinner's over. Please leave. Rachel, Mom began, but I cut her off. Now, all of you. One by one, they filed out. Dad fuming, Mom tearful, Kevin avoiding my eyes. Only Brittany paused. I'm so sorry, she whispered. For what it's worth, I think you deserved better. After they left, I closed the door, turned the lock, and leaned against it. The table was still laden with food, glasses half full, napkins abandoned. $347 in groceries, $28,800 in support, and now, freedom. At a price I was finally willing to pay. I stood in the silence of my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of the disastrous Thanksgiving dinner. The turkey was cooling, potatoes congealing, wine glasses standing half empty like abandoned sentinels. I grabbed my car keys and walked out, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere. For 2 hours, I drove aimlessly. Past the high school where I'd graduated valedictorian to minimal applause. Past the park where Dad had taught Kevin to throw a football, but never attended my debate competitions. Past the library where Mom worked, but had never displayed my academic awards alongside Kevin's sports trophies. Memories flooded back with each landmark. The time I won a national essay contest and Dad said, "It's just writing. Anyone can put words on paper." The time Mom forgot to pick me up from math club because Kevin had a scrimmage, leaving me waiting in the rain for 2 hours. The time they'd used my college fund to buy Kevin a car because he needed it more for sports. My phone rang, breaking through the spiral of painful recollections. Amber. "Hey," I answered, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Rachel, what's wrong? Did something happen at dinner?" The concern in her voice cracked my composure. I pulled into an empty parking lot and told her everything. Dad's outburst, Mom's accusation, the final ultimatum. "Oh, alright," Amber sighed. "I'm so sorry, but honestly, this has been coming for years." "What do you mean?" "You've been their ATM with no recognition, no appreciation, and definitely no respect. They've been financially and emotionally abusing you, and you've been letting them." "That's not," I started to protest, then stopped. "Wasn't it exactly that? Remember when we talked about enabling toxic dynamics?" Amber continued gently. "You've been enabling them to treat you badly by continuing to fund their lifestyle while accepting their disrespect." A tear slid down my cheek. "So, this is my fault?" "God, no. Their behavior is 100% on them. But continuing to pay their bills while they treat you like garbage? That's a choice you've been making, and you can unmake it." The clarity of her words hit me like a thunderbolt. For 3 years, I'd been telling myself I was doing the right thing, the responsible thing, the loving thing. But what kind of love demanded everything and gave nothing in return? "You're right," I said, wiping away tears. "This ends tonight." "What are you going to do?" Exactly what I told them. "I'm cutting them off completely." "Are you sure?" "That's a big step." I started the car. I've never been more sure of anything. "I'll call you tomorrow." Driving back to my apartment, I felt a curious mixture of grief and determination. The family I had tried so hard to please, to support, to love despite everything, that family might be lost to me now. But perhaps it had never really existed except in my desperate hopes. Back home, I cleaned up the dining room methodically, wrapping leftovers, washing dishes, restoring order to the physical space, while my mind mapped out the financial extrication plan. Once the kitchen was spotless, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. First, I logged into my bank account and canceled all automatic payments to the mortgage company, utility companies, and insurance providers associated with my parents' home. Each cancellation required confirmation, asking if I was sure. Yes, yes, yes. Each click felt like breaking a chain that had bound me for too long. Next, I drafted an email to Michael Stevens, my family lawyer, detailing my decision to cease all financial support, documenting that it was voluntary and temporary. After sending it, I texted my parents' landlord, clarifying that I would no longer be responsible for any payments. The response came quickly. "Understood, Rachel. I'll update our records." "Just to be clear, December payment will be their responsibility." "Yes," I typed back. "All future payments are their responsibility." Finally, I contacted each utility provider to remove my name and payment information. The electric company representative sounded sympathetic. "We'll send notification to the account holders that payment information has been changed," she said. "They'll have 7 days to update with new payment details before service is effected." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a twinge of guilt that I quickly suppressed. 7 days. That was fair warning. By midnight, I had dismantled the entire financial structure I had built to support my parents. Nearly $2,400 monthly would now remain in my accounts. The weight of that responsibility lifted, but in its place settled a heavy sadness. Despite everything, they were still my parents. I still remember Dad teaching me to ride a bike, Mom reading me bedtime stories before Kevin was born and became the center of their universe. I booked a hotel room for the night, not wanting to be in my apartment if they decided to return. As I packed an overnight bag, my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from Dad ranging from furious, "How dare you speak to us like that?" to threatening, "You'll regret this." Voicemails from Mom, alternating between crying and guilt-tripping. Nothing from Kevin yet. I silenced my phone, grabbed my bag, and took one last look around my apartment, the place that should have been my sanctuary, but had become another battlefield in the endless war for my parents' approval. Tonight, I was retreating. But this wasn't surrender. This was strategic withdrawal to protect what mattered most, my self-respect. In the hotel room, I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the stress. Wrapped in the plush robe, I sat by the window overlooking the town where I'd grown up, where I'd achieved and strived and never quite measured up. Tomorrow would bring consequences, confrontations, perhaps even chaos. But tonight, I had taken the first step toward freedom from a cycle of emotional manipulation that had defined my relationship with my family for as long as I could remember. My phone lit up with a text from Amber. "You okay?" "I will be," I replied. And for the first time in years, I actually believed it. I woke up the next morning to 37 missed calls, 22 voicemails, and 64 text messages. Scrolling through the notifications with one eye still closed, I saw the expected names: Dad, Mom, Kevin. But there were also messages from aunts, uncles, and family friends I hadn't spoken to in months. Word had spread overnight. The first voicemail was from Dad, timestamped 7:14 a.m. His voice tight with controlled anger. "Rachel, this childish tantrum has gone far enough. Call me immediately." The second, at 7:32 a.m. "The mortgage company just called. They said you removed your payment information. This isn't funny, Rachel." By the eighth voicemail, his tone had shifted from anger to panic. "Rachel, please. We need to talk about this. Your mother is very upset." Mom's messages were predictably manipulative. "How could you do this to us after everything we've done for you? I didn't raise you to be this selfish." And finally, "I'm not feeling well from all the stress. I hope you're satisfied." I deleted them all without responding and ordered room service breakfast. While waiting for my food, I checked my email. Michael Stevens, my lawyer, had replied. "Rachel, thank you for documenting this decision. You are correct that you have no legal obligation to continue financial support for your parents. If you encounter any legal issues, please contact me immediately." His professional confirmation strengthened my resolve. I had done nothing wrong. I was simply ending an arrangement that had become emotionally toxic. After breakfast, I headed to work. I'd considered calling in sick, but hiding would only delay the inevitable. Better to face whatever came next head-on. I had just settled at my desk when our receptionist called. "Rachel, there are 2 people in the lobby insisting on seeing you. They say they're your parents. They don't have an appointment, and they seem agitated." My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. "Please tell them I'm in meetings all morning and can't be disturbed. If they don't leave voluntarily, please call security." "Are you sure?" "They're saying it's a family emergency." "I'm sure there's no emergency except the one they've created." "Thank you, Diane." 20 minutes later, my boss, Jennifer, knocked on my office door. "Rachel, do you have a minute?" I looked up, bracing myself. "Of course." Jennifer closed the door. Security just escorted 2 people from the building who claimed to be her parents. They were causing quite a scene. Her expression was concerned, but not accusatory. "Is everything okay?" For a moment, I considered a professional deflection. "Everything's fine, just a misunderstanding." But Jennifer had always been straightforward with me, and I decided to return the courtesy. "No, it's not okay. My parents and I had a significant falling out yesterday. I've been financially supporting them for 3 years, and yesterday I informed them that support is ending. They're not taking it well." Jennifer nodded slowly. "I see. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Do you need some time off?" Her simple question, free of judgment or prying, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "No, thank you. Work is actually a good distraction right now." "All right. But the offer stands if you change your mind." She paused. And Rachel, I've instructed security not to allow them into the building again without your explicit permission. This is your workplace, and you have the right to do your job without that kind of disruption. Thank you, I managed, touched by her support. By lunchtime, Kevin had finally texted. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They say you cut them off completely. Is that true? I took a deep breath. Yes. I'm done being the family ATM while being treated like I don't matter. His reply came quickly. But what about their mortgage? The utilities? What about them, Kevin? I've paid them for 3 years. Maybe it's your turn. You know I can't afford that. I'm barely making enough to cover my own expenses. Then I guess they'll need to figure something out. Sell the house. Downsize. Get better jobs. The options adults normally consider when they can't pay their bills. That's cold, R.A. Is it? Funny. No one thought it was cold when I was sacrificing my financial future to support them while getting nothing but criticism in return. Kevin didn't respond for several minutes. When he did, his message surprised me. They never told me you were paying the mortgage. They said you were helping out a little with utilities. I had no idea it was everything. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course, they had minimized my contribution. Acknowledging the full extent of their dependence on me would have required gratitude they weren't prepared to give. Well, now you know, I texted back. And now it's over. That afternoon, I received a call from the mortgage company. I almost declined it, then realized they might need confirmation of my withdrawal. Miss Morgan, this is Trevor from Homestead Mortgage. I'm calling about the Morgan residence on Maple Street. Yes, I've removed my payment information from that account as I will no longer be making payments on that property. I understand. The primary account holders are attempting to make arrangements, but they've asked that I speak with you directly. They claim there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. I voluntarily paid their mortgage for 3 years. I am now voluntarily stopping. That's all. Yes, ma'am. I'll update our records accordingly. By evening, the situation had escalated. My phone showed a missed call from my Aunt Susan, Mom's sister, followed by a blistering text. Rachel, I can't believe you would do this to your own parents. They gave you everything growing up. And this is how you repay them? By throwing them out on the street? Your mother is in tears. Your father is talking about having to sell the house. Is that what you want? 2. Destroy your family over money. I didn't bother responding. Aunt Susan had always parroted my mother's version of events without question. She had no idea what the reality had been. As I drove home from work, I spotted a familiar car parked in front of my apartment building, Dad's old blue Ford. I kept driving, circling the block twice until the car was gone. They were clearly trying to ambush me at home now. I needed a better plan than hotel hopping. Just as I finally parked in my designated spot, my phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, Rachel. It's Brittany, Kevin's girlfriend. Brittany, is everything okay? Not really. I'm calling because, well, I think you should know what's happening. Your parents showed up at your apartment earlier. When you didn't come home, your dad tried to use his key. His key? He doesn't have a key to my apartment. That's what the neighbor said when he came out and asked what they were doing. Your dad claimed he was your father and had a right to enter. The neighbor called the police. My blood ran cold. The police? Yes. They came and spoke with your parents. No one was arrested, but they were told they couldn't enter your property without permission. Your dad he wasn't taking it well when they left. Thank you for telling me. There's more, Brittany said, her voice dropping. Kevin and I had a huge fight about all this. He kept saying you were being selfish, and I told him he was being blind. That from what I saw yesterday and what he's told me about growing up, you've been treated unfairly for years. He didn't want to hear it. I'm sorry, I said, genuinely meaning it. I never meant to cause problems between you two. You didn't. This revealed problems that were already there. She paused. Anyway, I thought you should know about the police and that not everyone thinks you're wrong. What you did took courage. After thanking her again, I called the local police non-emergency line to file a report about the attempted entry and request additional patrols. The officer was professional. We'll make a note to increase patrols in your area for the next few days, he assured me. If they return and try to enter again, call 911 immediately. That night, I slept fitfully, jumping at every sound. By morning, texts from various family members continued to pour in. My cousin Melissa, always the family gossip, sent the most revealing message. OMG, the whole family is talking about your parents getting police called on them at your apartment. Your mom told everyone you're having some kind of breakdown and they were just checking on you. What is actually happening? I decided to reply to this one with simple facts. I stopped paying their bills after years of financial and emotional abuse. They tried to enter my apartment without permission when I wasn't home. A neighbor called the police. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm finally standing up for myself. Melissa's response was immediate. Whoa, that's not what they're telling everyone. I'm sure it's not, I wrote back. But it's the truth. As the day progressed, the utilities at my parents' house began shutting off one by one. I learned this through a series of increasingly frantic messages from Mom. The internet just went out. Now the electricity is gone. In November, it's freezing in here. The water company says service will be disconnected tomorrow if payment isn't received. I didn't respond to any of them. This was exactly what I had warned would happen. The consequences of their actions and mine were unfolding exactly as expected. 1 week after the Thanksgiving disaster, I sat in Dr. Sarah Collins's office, fidgeting with the sleeve of my sweater. I had never been to therapy before, but after 7 days of emotional warfare, I needed professional guidance. So, Dr. Collins said, "You made a significant change in a long-established family dynamic. That's bound to create ripple effects. How are you feeling about your decision now?" I considered the question carefully. Guilty sometimes, relieved other times, sad almost always. She nodded. All normal reactions. You've disrupted a dysfunctional system that, while harmful to you, was at least familiar and predictable. Change, even positive change, often brings grief. But should I have done it differently? Less abruptly? Given them warning? Would warning have changed the fundamental dynamics at play? She asked. No, I admitted. They would have tried to guilt or manipulate me into changing my mind, or made promises they wouldn't keep. Then perhaps the abruptness was necessary. Sometimes a clean break is kinder than a prolonged separation. We continued talking, exploring the patterns that had defined my relationship with my parents, the role I had played, and strategies for setting and enforcing boundaries. By the end of the session, I felt more grounded, more certain that I had made the right choice, however painful. As I was leaving, Dr. Collins said something that stayed with me. Remember, Rachel, reconciliation may be possible someday, but it requires change on both sides, not just yours. Don't accept responsibility for healing a relationship that others aren't willing to examine honestly. Outside the office, I checked my phone to find an unexpected message from Kevin. Can we meet for coffee? Just us. No parents, no drama. We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown, neutral territory, far from both our parents' home and my apartment. Kevin arrived looking tired, circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't been sleeping well either. Thanks for coming, he said as we sat with our drinks. You look terrible, I replied, not unkindly. He attempted a smile. Yeah, well, it's been a rough week for everyone. I agreed. Kevin stared into his coffee. I broke up with Brittany. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. She was right about a lot of things. He looked up at me. Including how unfairly you've been treated. This was not what I had expected. Go on. After everything blew up, I started thinking about growing up. Really thinking, not just the highlight reel Mom and Dad always focus on. And I realized you got a raw deal, RA. They were always harder on you, always expected more, always gave less. I benefited from that. And I never said anything. No, you didn't, I said, unwilling to make this easier for him. I should have. I'm sorry. He took a deep breath. But that's not why I wanted to meet. I wanted to tell you that I've taken over the utility payments. Not the mortgage yet, I really can't swing that, but I'm covering electric, water, internet. And I told them they need to figure out the mortgage themselves. I blinked in surprise. You did? Yeah, they didn't take it well. Dad said I was choosing you over family. He gave a bitter laugh. The irony didn't seem to register with him. I never expected you to pick up the bills, Kevin. I know, but it's the right thing to do. I'm their son too. And I've been letting you carry everything. He hesitated. There's something else you should know. The house is going into foreclosure. They're 3 months behind on the mortgage already. What? But I've been paying it. Kevin looked uncomfortable. Apparently, they've been taking cash advances on credit cards for other expenses. They're pretty deep in debt beyond just the mortgage. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All those years of sacrifice, of putting my own financial future on hold to keep them afloat, and they had been digging themselves deeper into debt the entire time. They've been telling everyone in the family that you abandoned them without warning, Kevin continued. But I set Uncle Robert straight last night. He was pretty shocked to learn you'd been paying their mortgage for 3 years. Is that why he called me this morning? Kevin nodded. Probably. He and Aunt Patricia are talking about letting Mom and Dad stay with them until they figure something out. We talked for another hour, comparing notes on our childhood, acknowledging painful truths we'd both avoided for years. It wasn't complete reconciliation. Too much had happened for that. But it was a start, a recognition that the family narrative had been distorted for too long. As we were leaving, Kevin asked, "Are you going to the family Christmas party at Grandma's?" The annual Morgan family Christmas gathering. I hadn't even considered it. I don't know. It might be too soon. Think about it. It might be good to have allies there. Allies? The word felt strange applied to my family, where I had always felt like an outsider looking in. I'll think about it, I promised. Later that afternoon, I received an unexpected text from Brittany. Kevin told me you two talked. I'm glad. For what it's worth, ending things with him was hard, but necessary. He's got some growing up to do. So do your parents. But you're already there. Stay strong. The support from unexpected quarters continued. Jennifer, my boss, called me into her office the following day. Rachel, I've been thinking about your situation. The company has an emergency housing assistance program for employees facing unstable living conditions. Given the circumstances with your family, I believe you qualify. It would cover temporary relocation if you feel unsafe in your current apartment. That's incredibly generous, I said, touched by her concern. But I think I'm okay for now. The police have been patrolling regularly, and my parents seem to have backed off. The offer stands if things change. And Rachel, the leadership team has noticed your work this past year. Despite everything going on in your personal life, your portfolio performance has been exceptional. That kind of resilience and focus doesn't go unrecognized here. Her words meant more than she could know. Professional recognition based solely on merit. Not tempered by comparison to a golden child or diminished by arbitrary standards I could never meet. Not everyone was so supportive, of course. 3 days later, I ran into my mother at the local grocery store. I had been avoiding their neighborhood, but never expected to see her across town at the store near my apartment. Rachel, she said, blocking my path in the produce section. Her appearance shocked me. She looked years older, the lines around her mouth deeper, her hair unwashed. Mom, I acknowledged, keeping my voice neutral. Excuse me, please. That's it? That's all you have to say to me after what you've done to our family. Other shoppers were beginning to stare. I lowered my voice. This isn't the place, Mom. Where's the place then? You won't answer our calls. You've turned your brother against us. You've turned family friends against us. I've simply told the truth, Mom. If that turns people against you, maybe consider why. Her face contorted. The truth? You want truth? The truth is you've always been selfish. Always thought you were better than us with your fancy degree and your big job. We gave you everything growing up. No, you didn't. I interrupted, finally reaching my limit. You gave Kevin everything. You gave me scraps of attention when it was convenient. You took my college fund for his car. You forgot my high school graduation because he had a baseball game. You see, always keeping score, she cried loudly enough that a store employee began walking toward us. Always the victim. Ma'am, the employee said cautiously. Is everything okay? No, my mother spat. My daughter is publicly humiliating me, just like she's been trying to destroy our family. The employee looked uncomfortably between us. I'm going to have to ask you both to take this outside. You're disturbing other customers. I was just leaving, I said, abandoning my half-filled cart. As I walked away, my mother called after me. "This isn't over, Rachel. Families don't just end because one person decides to walk away." Her words followed me to the parking lot where I sat in my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. She was right about one thing. This wasn't over. The confrontation had been recorded on someone's phone, and by evening, the video was circulating among local social media groups. Financial analyst publicly berated by mother in Thompson's grocery, read one post, accompanied by the video showing my mother's tirade and my hasty exit. Colleagues sent concerned messages. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly reached out, curious about the family drama now playing out semi-publicly. The boundary between my professional reputation and personal life, a line I had always carefully maintained, was blurring dangerously. That weekend, I attended my first holiday party of the season at Amber's apartment, surrounded by friends who knew me, valued me, and expected nothing from me except my company. As we decorated gingerbread houses and drank mulled wine, I felt a glimmer of what holidays could be without the weight of familial obligation and disappointment. To chosen family, Amber toasted, raising her glass. The people who love us because they want to, not because they have to. To chosen family, we echoed. And in that moment, surrounded by genuine warmth and acceptance, I understood that I hadn't lost a family. I had found one worthy of the name. 3 months after the Thanksgiving disaster, winter was reluctantly giving way to early spring. Tiny buds appeared on the trees lining my street, promising renewal after months of dormancy. It felt appropriate for my own life, which was also showing tentative signs of new growth after the emotional winter I had endured. My weekly sessions with Dr. Collins had become an anchor, helping me process the complex grief of family estrangement. Grief? I had questioned initially. No one died. Grief isn't just about death, she explained. It's about loss. You've lost the family you hoped for, the relationships you worked to maintain, and the fantasy that things might somehow improve if you just tried hard enough. That deserves to be mourned. So I mourned. For the supportive parents I had never had, for the brother who had been set against me from childhood, for the years spent seeking approval that was always just out of reach. And gradually, the mourning gave way to acceptance, and acceptance to a tentative sense of peace. The practical consequences of my decision had unfolded as expected. My parents' house was now deep in foreclosure proceedings, formal notices piling up as the bank prepared to reclaim the property. Kevin had maintained the utility payments, true to his word, but the mortgage was far beyond what either of us had realized. Years of hidden debt had created a financial hole too deep to escape without drastic measures. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia had offered my parents temporary housing in their guest room, an arrangement that Kevin reported was already showing signs of strain. Dad refuses to look for anything beyond part-time work, he told me during one of our now regular coffee meetings. Says at his age he shouldn't have to start over. Uncle Robert disagrees. And Mom? I asked, still cautious when discussing our parents directly. She's taken more hours at the library and He hesitated. She's been asking about you. What about me? How you're doing? If you ever mention them. Kevin stirred his coffee. I think reality is finally setting in that this isn't just a phase you're going through. It's not, I confirmed. This is permanent unless some fundamental things change. I know. I told her that. He looked up. She asked me to give you this. He handed me an envelope, my name written on the front in my mother's familiar handwriting. I took it cautiously, as if it might bite. You don't have to read it now, Kevin said. Or ever. But she asked me to deliver it. I slipped the letter into my purse, unsure whether I would open it at all. Dr. Collins had warned me about being pulled back into old patterns through guilt or manipulation, and a letter seemed like a perfect vehicle for either. Later that night, alone in my apartment, curiosity overcame caution. I opened the envelope and unfolded 2 pages of stationery. Dear Rachel, it began. I don't know if you'll read this. Kevin says he'll give it to you, but I understand if you throw it away unopened. I would, in your position. That's what I've been thinking about lately. Your position. For the first time, I've been trying to see things from your perspective. It's not comfortable. I don't like the mother I see through your eyes. Harold doesn't know I'm writing this. He's still angry, still blaming you for everything. I was too at first. It was easier than looking at my part in all this. The truth is, I've never been fair to you. I favored Kevin from the moment he was born. He was easier, happy, uncomplicated, satisfied with simple praise. You were always more. More intelligent, more perceptive, more demanding. You saw through empty words. You needed substance I wasn't equipped to provide. So, I took the easy route. I poured my limited emotional resources into Kevin and left you to fend for yourself. Then, I convinced myself you were fine that way. Independent, self-sufficient. I told myself you didn't need the attention Kevin did. I was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. Too late. But I see it. The damage we did. The daughter we lost because we couldn't appreciate the remarkable woman she became. We're moving in with my sister in Arizona next month. The house will be gone by then. It's for the best. Too many ghosts there anyway. I hope you're well. I hope someday we might talk again, though I understand if that never happens. Mom. I read the letter 3 times, searching for the usual manipulations, the guilt trips, the subtle jabs. They weren't there. Instead, I found something I had never expected from my mother: accountability. Limited, belated, but real. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I brought the letter to my next therapy session, where Dr. Collins helped me process my complicated reactions. This seems like a significant step for your mother, she observed. But remember, one letter doesn't erase years of behavior. If there's to be any reconciliation, it would need to be gradual, with clear boundaries and consistent change over time. I'm not sure I even want reconciliation, I admitted. Part of me feels lighter without them in my life. That's valid, too. You're not obligated to rebuild relationships simply because you share DNA. The question is, what serves your well-being now and going forward? What served my well-being turned out to be continuing the separation while acknowledging my mother's letter with a brief, civil response. Mom, thank you for your letter. I appreciate the reflection it represents. I'm not ready for further communication at this time, but I wish you well in Arizona. Rachel. Short, neither warm nor cold, leaving the door neither fully closed nor wide open. It was all I could honestly offer. With Kevin, things continued to improve gradually. Our shared history created a bond that, while damaged, wasn't beyond repair. He had begun to see our childhood through clearer eyes, recognizing the ways he had been weaponized against me in family dynamics neither of us had created. I was thinking about that science fair in 7th grade, he said during one of our meetings. When you built that amazing solar system model with the working lights, and Dad made such a big deal about my participation ribbon in the track meet that fell on the same day. I remember, I said, surprised he did too. You spent weeks on that model. It was incredible. Should have won first place, not third. And all anyone talked about at dinner was my stupid ribbon. He shook his head. I knew it was wrong even then, R.A. I just didn't say anything because, well, it felt good to be the favorite. You were a kid, Kevin. Neither of us created that dynamic. No, but I benefited from it. And now I'm trying to figure out who I am without it. He gave a wry smile. Turns out the golden child identity doesn't prepare you very well for actual adulthood. Professionally, the aftermath of the Thanksgiving incident had eventually stabilized. The viral grocery store confrontation had faded from local social media, replaced by newer community dramas. Jennifer had proven to be an unexpected ally, shielding me from potential professional fallout and even recommending me for a prestigious financial advising certification program. Your ability to maintain excellent work while handling personal challenges shows exactly the kind of resilience our top clients need in an advisor, she told me when announcing my acceptance. Emotions and finances are always intertwined. Someone who understands that connection firsthand has an advantage. As spring advanced, I created new traditions and connections. Sunday brunches with Amber and our circle of friends. Volunteer work at a financial literacy program for young adults aging out of foster care. A tentative first date with Michael, a kind-eyed architect I met through the volunteer program. One unseasonably warm Saturday in late April, I was returning from a morning run when I spotted a familiar figure waiting near my apartment building, my father. looking older and somewhat diminished in the bright sunlight. My steps slowed as I approached cautiously. "Dad." He turned, clearly nervous, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Rachel, I wasn't sure you'd talk to me." "That depends on what you want to say." He nodded, accepting the conditional nature of the conversation. "I won't take much of your time. Before we leave for Arizona, I needed to say something in person." He took a deep breath. "You were right about a lot of things. I wasn't fair to you. I didn't appreciate what you did for us." The admission, so long awaited, felt strangely anticlimactic. "Thank you for saying that." "I'm not good at this," he continued, staring at the sidewalk. "Admitting when I'm wrong. Your mother always said it was my worst quality." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. One of many, according to her these days. "Arizona is a fresh start," I offered neutrally. "Yes. At my age." He shook his head. "Starting over at 61 wasn't in the plan." "Plans change. We adapt." He looked up then, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in years. "You turned out well, Rachel. Strong, smart. That wasn't because of us. It was despite us. I want you to know I recognize that." The words unlocked something in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but a releasing of something tightly held. "I appreciate." "That, Dad." We stood in awkward silence for a moment before he spoke again. "We're leaving next week. Your mother has the address. If you ever want to, well, it's there if you need it." "Safe travels," I said, not committing to more. He nodded, understanding the boundary. "Take care of yourself, Rachel." I replied. "For the first time in a long time, I really am." As he walked away, I felt no dramatic surge of emotion, no cinematic reconciliation, no profound catharsis. Just a quiet acknowledgement that sometimes healing doesn't look like complete restoration. Sometimes it's just about reaching a place where the past no longer dictates the future. That evening, I hosted dinner for Amber, Kevin, and a few close friends. As we gathered around my table, the same one where Thanksgiving had imploded 4 months earlier, I looked at the faces of these people who chose to be in my life, who valued me as I was, who expected nothing beyond mutual respect and genuine connection. "What are you smiling about?" Amber asked, passing me a basket of bread. "Just thinking about conditional versus unconditional love," I replied. All my life, I thought family love was supposed to be unconditional. But it came with so many conditions I could never meet. And here, with friends, where we could walk away at any time, this feels more unconditional than anything I grew up with. Kevin raised his glass. To finding the right conditions to thrive and the courage to create them when necessary. As our glasses clinked together, I realized that the family I had lost had never really existed except in my desperate hopes and futile efforts. What I had found instead, self-respect, true friendship, honest connection, and yes, even a cautiously healing relationship with my brother, was real, solid, and mine to keep. The journey hadn't been easy. The $28,800 I had spent supporting my parents might never be repaid. The emotional cost had been higher still. But as I looked around at my chosen family, I knew with absolute certainty it had been worth every single penny.